of a successful beauty or barber school. And because today we are joined by an industry expert who has spent decades doing the work most educators never get too up close to see. Ms. Jane Archie has run beauty schools, mentored trade school owners, and guided institutions through accreditation, financial aid, compliance, and operational structure, which are all extremely important to the journey of beauty school owners. Her depth of experience is unmatched, and her voice is one our industry definitely needs. She understands what makes schools strive, what makes them fail, and how educator development plays a powerful role in the overall success of an institution. She's seen it all, fixed it all, and mentored countless leaders through the process. Guys, I want you all to welcome Miss Jane Archie to the Beauty Educators Chair. How you doing today, Miss Jane?
Thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. This is very exciting for me. I really am excited about being here, and I know that my career has been dedicated to helping school owners succeed. Having been a school owner and really needing to know how to do all these things, I am so appreciative of this kind of talk. I know that accreditation and this topic is like this monster. And really, accreditation and compliance is not a monster. And that's why I'm glad to be able to talk about it and to share with you some ideas on this.
Absolutely. Oh my God, guys, listen, no matter where you are tuning in from on today, we want you to know that this conversation is totally about education, but it is also about structure, standards, integrity, and the behind the scenes systems that shape every student's experience. So before we dive into today's topic for today, I want Miss Jane to elaborate a little bit more about who she is, what she does, and also where can we find out more about Miss Jane Archie?
Well, first of all, I thank you so much for having me here. My journey into beauty education is really quite ironic. If you'd asked me when I was younger that I would spend my life in this industry, I would have laughed. I actually absolutely hated going to the hairdresser. I love fashion. I love makeup. My mother was a big influence in all of that. But when it came to my own hair, it was almost awful. I spent an entire day at a salon for a high school experience, and I was so disappointed. I walked out of there and I thought, never again. I'm not going anymore. I did not understand the real professionalism that could have been given to me. And I didn't understand how this business could be part of something I'd want to be part of until I met my husband, Bill. That transformative power came from him. He's a beauty educator, and his whole family had beauty schools, and
Awesome.
that was the key to understanding more of this. It was something that, as a pair, we began to recognize that in a lot of the schools that we had seen, the curriculum was not based on training everyone how to do everyone's hair. The training had been focused exclusively on one or the other, and not as a continuing part, not as something where people who walked in could get a service. They'd have to specialize. And we wanted to be sure that we created something where anyone who walked in, our students could be able to help them and be knowledgeable about what it is to do for them. I know hair is hair, but there are so many different kinds of pieces. So it became the teacher's opportunity to learn how to teach all the different styles to all students. That way, no one would feel badly when they walked in, and everyone would know how to deal with them. So there's nothing more rewarding for me than beauty school, because I was a Spanish teacher, and in high school, you don't see the kids grow. But in beauty school, you see the amazing transformation once they start school and once they finish. And that's what I've been dedicated to for a very long time. So our organization, JSpeak Solutions, we work with all kinds of industry professionals. We like working with schools and helping them, but we also very much like working with all of the different vendors who are part of our wonderful, amazing industry.
All right, Ms. Jane, thank you so much for that introduction. And guys, I don't know about you all, but I know that being in compliance is one of the most important things to me, because what I don't like is for people to have to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing if I already know what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm just one of those type of people that I really like to do everything straight from the hip and do what I have to do and just keep it moving, because I don't like to be, honestly, part of me feels like being in compliance almost feels like there's that oversight that makes you feel like you're being micromanaged to a degree. And I don't really like that. So that's why I like to always stay doing what I have to do. So today, our topic of conversation is inside the institution. What every educator should know about accreditation, compliance, and school success. And honestly, guys, I don't know about you, but I love having access to people that has skin in the game. People that actually experienced some of the things that we may have to experience, because I do believe that experience is the greatest teacher. And you do want to learn from people that can provide you real world insight as to things that could potentially happen, because we do understand that every situation isn't going to be the exact same for every person. But at least for somebody that has had an opportunity to experience it, they can share with you some things to look forward to. And so, Miss Jane, you have no idea how excited I am to dive into some of today's questioning. So, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, our first question for today. So, you have decades of experience running beauty schools. And I'm not going to lie, shout out to Mr. Bill for getting her in this place, because guess what? I have heard some amazing things about her, and I'm just really excited about today. So, because you've had the opportunity to run beauty schools, what do educators often misunderstand about accreditation and compliance? And I'm going to actually say, so we're going to say beauty school owners and educators. Like, what is often misunderstood about accreditation and compliance?
First of all, I think most people have an equation. Accreditation equals financial aid. And therefore, accreditation equals money. And that is true, but it's also not true. And what I find is that the idea of having a school and having to have accreditation, you don't. And I know I sound when you just spoke, I feel like you. I don't really like people telling me what to do. I always like to be in control. The problem is if I'm not sure what it is I'm supposed to be doing, then I can't be in control of that. And so what I've always found is that accreditation gives us an opportunity to know what to do. Whether we want to do that or not, that's up to you. And so there are so many people in so many different situations. But what I found that's equal is that everybody thinks that it's an easy process. Somebody can give you all of the forms that you have to fill out. Our friend ChatGPT or AI or whatever, say in whatever area you have, can fill in all the answers for you, and that it will happen and you will be granted financial aid. The problem is you have to figure out what's best for you. If you're in an area or in a demographic area where you know that people have the ability to pay for their education, that's different than if you're in an area where you are not able to pay for their education. And we find that it does make a huge difference for those schools that want to serve the underserved and always, in many ways, need to have accreditation in order then to have access to the financial aid. The thing that I think all people think too is that accreditation and financial aid means loans. No, it also means grants. And the grant money is something that can be given. Schools do not have to use loan money. There are so many possibilities when it comes to what accreditation can give you. But for me, it always gave me a feeling that I was among those institutions that served students really well and that gave them a good education and that prepared them for the next step. Because what I find too in a lot of schools is that educators think all I have to do is get this student past the test. To pass the test, whether it's the theory test or the written test, the practical test, and get their license, and my job is done. I'm going to tell you, it's not done, and that's not your job. Your job in a school is to teach this person how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a self-sufficient individual with new skills that they love, to give the service that they love to give the kinds of make the kinds of wonderful designs that they like to do, no matter what kind of hair, no matter what kind of, whether it's facials or makeup or nails or all hair. I find that the educators do not see their actual role. Your actual role is to teach them to be an entrepreneur, to teach them to be able to be productive when they get out there, to teach them to go to work. And what accreditation can do is give you a better view or lesson plan, if I have to say that, as to what has to happen for a school to be able to do that. For many people, I think that they don't understand their part in accreditation. It's a team thing. And so they go to work for an owner and they think that it's like a salon. You're in your classroom and you're doing your thing, and your owners are doing whatever their thing is. And it's not. If you're going for accreditation and you're going to be a successful school, it has to be a team school. Now, you can
Mm,
have team schools without accreditation. And there are plenty of schools across the country that are really doing very well because you have really passionate and wonderful educators as the lead of the school, as the owner
mm,
of the school. But you also have schools in which the owners haven't got a clue. The last big school that I ran, I have to say that the owners were wonderful. I loved them both. They were adorable. They had not a clue as to what it was that we
wow.
did as a school. They just had a school. Because they also had a secretarial school and some other, I forget what other kind of vocational school. And they thought somebody said it
Mhm,
was a good, add this on. So they added it on. And you do
mm,
have a lot of investors who feel that they can make a whole lot of money because they have this kind of business. And
right.
if we're in a school as educators, we have to understand our part of the school. And our part is making sure that that student is getting the education needed. Well,
Mm,
sometimes that means that you've got to, shake the chains of the owners. You've got to have the right equipment. You've got to have the right curriculum. You've got to have the right setup. You've got to have the right things going on in that institution. You got to have
mm,
clients that come in the door so that they can have real world service. But as educators, sometimes we get caught in how do I just teach this class to get them to the test? And that's
mm.
not enough. It isn't enough. And so our organization has always been, that was my first journey as an entrepreneur. And that
Yeah.
was to help those people that were out there have better continuing education. So in the state of Texas, a long time ago, we had instructors licenses. We don't have instructors licenses anymore.
I didn't
But
know.
yes, it's just annoying. But in any case, there was continuing education, and there still is. Every 2 years, we have to do something. And for me,
Mhm,
when I opened the continuing education that was offered, it was terrible. It was reading me a book out of the book. So that was when I retired. That was my decision. I was going to make an organization that would
mm,
do that. And that's how I started. I started with making continuing education courses for teachers. And then it
wow.
got to be continuing education for everybody else because it was boring to be read to. So why not have a fun course? And so I've continued that. That is part of what we do. But then I got school owners coming to me and saying, How do I do this? How can I get here? How can I get there?" And that's how we
Yeah.
grew into the organization we are today.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. So I think that it is extremely important for educators to kind of know. And so you really unpacked a good bit in that response. So that leads us into the next segue because what I do love what you said about understanding accreditation and compliance as it relates to educators and the misunderstanding and even with school owners having sometimes a misunderstanding of what does it really take to actually run a successful beauty or barbering school. You talked
Mhm.
about the schools actually being team oriented. Like it takes a team to be
It
like to
does.
grow a successful school. And oh my God, I was like, I'm sitting back and I'm like, oh my God, I want to say so much as she's saying it because I don't think that people really understand that. And when you are in education, there really isn't, in my opinion, there isn't enough money that can be paid to you for the service that you provide. Meaning that if you are an educator and you are passionate about growing people and building them to be entrepreneurs, where it also takes another entrepreneur to also grow other entrepreneurs, right? So
It
if you
does.
haven't had access to any of that information, how can you really love it? And so some people think that they're getting into it because of the money. No, you have to really have a passion for really
Yeah.
growing and building other people. I love how you say that. So we do. Great schools need great teams. As we talk about that, what do you feel? So because you've had the opportunity to work with many different people at many different levels of their beauty journey. What have you seen that has been some of the most common mistakes that schools make during the accreditation process? So they've submitted their application and I guess let's just say they're in candidacy status. So what are some of the mistakes that you've seen them make during the process? And then what may be some suggestions that you have as to how those things can be avoided?
Well, first of all, during the candidacy status, they should have started some of these other things first, because I think that for me, the biggest mistake that people make is not realizing how much they need others' input and feedback in order to run a successful school. And that's what most of the accrediting agencies are asking for. When they tell you you have to have an occupational advisory committee and an advisory committee for the whole school, institutional advisory committee, there is a real requirement to have other people helping you, telling you what they see as going on in the school so that you can fix it, improve it, keep on going with whatever it is you're doing. And so in the candidacy status, most people forget to go and reach out to ask people for help to come and be on their board, on their committees, and to serve and give their time to looking at the school and figuring out what it is that the school is doing so that they can give some feedback to it. So a lot of schools don't ask for that help. They feel like, just like me, I like to be in control. I can do it. I'll do it myself. It doesn't work that way. And it can't work that way. You can't run it. You can't provide for the students that way. You can't provide a good education for them. The knowledge, as you said at the beginning of this, the knowledge that other people can give to you to create a better school is what you need. So between the two, candidacy and the final accreditation, you have so many steps that have to be accomplished. The first is that you really do have to have an outside team, and they have to be meeting and they have to be talking about what's going on in the school. The second is that there are plans that have to be created. I have a plan in my head. I know what I'm going to do if a student falls on the floor. I'm going to call 911. But if those things are not written down, then other people in the school don't know that. And so what accreditation does require is that you have these plans written down. Well, for some of us, that makes common sense. That's our way of doing things. But for some people that are now starting to try to get into the industry as a school owner, they come straight from a salon. And in a salon, oftentimes you just did what you did. And you didn't have necessary rules of what went on if something happened. What if somebody with a gun came in? What would you do? What if there was a tornado? What would you do? That doesn't happen in salons in most cases. And most people, there are a lot of people now that we're seeing that are coming straight to the idea of I want to own. I like to teach. I enjoy talking to other people. I've taught my other colleagues. I'm always the one they ask, so I'm probably a pretty good teacher. Teaching and running a school and managing and supervising can be done by one person, absolutely. But everything that needs to be done for the student cannot be done by one person. And so it really is so difficult for a lot of schools to understand there's some criteria to give you an idea of what to do. So you should have a plan for your facility. You should have a plan for what you're going to do next year. You should have, and those shoulds seem like, oh my God, I can't do that. You already do that in most cases. Most people already do that in their head. Most people have open conversations and create those things. They just don't write them down. And so the biggest mistake is that there's no documentation. It's just like when you enroll students and the student tells you who they are and what their story is. There are some people that don't make notes. And if they don't make notes, they don't truly remember what the story is for that person. Well, it's the same for the school. The school has to have an enduring reputation. And that reputation comes from not following everybody's rules, but following a set of patterns that make you succeed. And so between candidacy and accreditation, it's a long haul because you have to there are different agencies call it different things, but it's basically you have a set of questions and you have to look at yourself and the school. And again, I don't know about you, but I can't stand back from a mirror and not see me. I just stand in the mirror and I see me. I need somebody to stand behind me and tell me, what am I looking at sometimes? Okay. And that's the same thing. That's the same thing for accreditation. It's trying to help you have others plus your team in your school look at what's going on in the school and then seeing what can be good or bad. The last thing, I think the biggest mistake is that people think it's the fall off the cliff. If you don't do it or you don't have it or you didn't do it, that's the end of it. And it's not. for every accreditation team, it's a visit, it's an evaluation of how you're doing and what you're doing, and then it's a set of things that these could be improved. And as long as you answer and improve, you're fine. You're not going to be closed. You're not going to be taken away. The earth isn't going to open up and swallow up your school. So accreditation is a give and take. And it is other people. Now, hopefully you work with organizations and people who've had experience, and that's important. I think that getting a mentor always is important, having somebody by your side to ask all the questions. And I always say, everybody says, well, this is a dumb question. No, you didn't have an answer to it. It can't be dumb. It can't be dumb.
Right.
Every question is worth asking. And so the idea here is that you have a mentor or someone to work with. Don't fall into the position that a consultant is going to write up your self-study and it's going to be easy and you pay them a good big buck and they'll do it for you. It doesn't work that way. It has to come from the school. It has to be the school working on it. It has to be the answers from the school. And if you've created a team, that's easy. If you haven't created a team, this is a way to do that. It is a way to get everybody in there because educators see so much of what goes on in a school that owners do not see. And that part of it is really important. And the feedback that can be given in these kinds of sessions to create this is important.
Yes. Oh my God. Listen, because I really am so appreciative how you really led with the team aspect because people don't really usually sometimes, and I know when I'm in an environment with school owners and I'm just talking, but being a school owner, but also still working as an instructor, but also before being a school owner, I was an instructor. So you see things just with a different set of lenses. And I would tell them because I was always a very dynamic rock star educator. Always. So I would be I was one of the teachers that they actually put in, I kept the students for like the first 3 months of their modules and things like that because I was the one that actually helped with the retention, right? I mean, you want your strong teachers to stay in the place so retention can be well. Well, what I realized is that sometimes educators don't really get the recognition, hence the beauty educator's chair here. We don't usually get the recognition that we probably deserve. And I'm not saying that all organizations are bad because that's not the case, but educators really fuel the school. If you don't have great educators, you really don't have a great school. Now, if you are in a situation to where it is owner occupied, like owner operated, where the owner is there as well, but that's usually with corporate schools, that's usually not the case. You don't get an opportunity to meet the owners. And then, like you say, you worked at an organization to where, they were investors, they owned the organization, but they had no clue as to what was going on. Which is so diabolical to me sometimes because how you don't try to come in at least to see what type of experience are you providing for your team, if there's any, or even what type of experience is being provided to your consumer, meaning the students as well as the guests, because we do know that the educators are the consumer of the school owner, but like, how does all of that actually work? And like you say, it takes a team. And that's so crazy to me.
It does.
Literally leads us to our next question. And I think that this one is really, really good. So, because we've literally been talking about the compliance piece and just being basically in alignment as it relates to the team as a whole working on this accreditation process. So why would you say it is important for educators to understand compliance, even if they aren't a part of the administration team?
Okay, that's easy. Accreditation asks for 3 things. It asks for completion, license, and placement. So accreditation is focused on when you get somebody in there, can you get them out? Can they take the test and pass? And can they go to work and be a productive individual? And the deal with an educator is that if you don't understand, you got to keep the student, you've got to train the student, and you got to make them that productive individual. Now, we're never going to make everybody that. You're never going to do it for everybody. But sometimes you do this, you actually give that spark to that person. And that's the important part. But as educators, your role is that student being able to understand what's going on, pass the test, and then actually go to work. And helping them throughout all of that is the school's mission. That's what the school is doing. It's supposed to be anyway. It's supposed to be focused on completing students. That's an educator has to be in there getting them motivated, getting them to come to school, getting them to do their work. No matter how boring some of this can be, it can also be fun.
Yes.
And the more fun that we make it, the more crazy stuff that we do with them, the better their creativity comes out. Because as educators today, we are not what I was. I stood up and I spoke and you listened. That's not what goes on today. It's the students'
Right.
responsibility today. And we have to give them the accountability, them the responsibility, them the way to bring out what is in them. And sometimes we don't remember that. Sitting and reading the book to them isn't beauty educating. Working
Yeah.
with them on all kinds of areas and all kinds of ways, that's the educating. But the fact that you spend your time getting that student educated means that that student can finish and is excited and motivated to finish. And to finish, as long as you've taught them those things that are the concepts that are necessary, they can pass the test. It isn't like our state exams are rocket science exams. They be difficult. And I find that they be difficult because sometimes we don't teach the students how to get that concept. But if you've given them that concept, they can pass the test. Now is the test. Can they go to work? And that's
Absolutely.
the hardest part to work on, is getting them to understand that they are that entrepreneur and that they can go to work. And so as an educator, you're part of everything that accreditation is. You're part of making sure that everything is safe. You're part of making sure that you have everything secure. You're part of making sure that all the equipment in the school and all of the teachings and all of the furniture and everything is right. You're all part of that because you're receiving all of that. So for educators to feel like I don't need to know any of this, it's all just paperwork, it's all just filling out forms. No, it's really not. And the more as an educator you understand all of this, the better educator you are, the better possibility there is for you to own and run a school and understand better what a school does. Because yes, it's a business and you can have the best educators in the world, but if you don't have any students, you don't have a school. So
Right.
educators, I'm an educator, been an educator for a very, very long time. But if I don't have a student in front of me, it's worthless. Okay. So the idea of understanding how everything fits in a school is really critical.
That was awesome. So as we get ready to close out for today's session, Miss Jane, I really want to thank you for lifting the curtain and just providing real impactful truths about what it really makes or what it really takes to have beauty schools succeed. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just really stuck on the fact of team. That for me, that was just profound because a lot of people don't really think about you can start something alone, but you can't go it alone if you desire for it to be at a level of success that exceeds your expectations. So,
Exactly.
your insight today about accreditation and operational excellence to me has been extremely invaluable. And it's something that people in our industry really need to hear more often because I don't believe they really have a clear understanding as to what goes on. And usually, an
Right.
educator that's just inside of the classroom, if you're, your lead educator or the director of education, depending, because the titles, of course, can vary based upon the size or the structure of the organization. But when they don't really keep their team, the entire team, included in the processes, then that means the people on the outside of the exterior of the team doesn't really get an opportunity to really fully understand. So I really appreciate you for just providing insight and actually amplifying the fact that we all need a team to grow further.
We do. We do. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes really successful schools is a
Yes.
really, really good team. And that comes from the top down. It really does. So it is focused on the ownership to make that happen and to include
Mm,
everybody. But there are all kinds of ways to do that. That's why sometimes as an owner, getting a mentor and sitting down with other owners, that's something that is important because you get other points of view to help you do what you need to do.
absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So, to every educator listening, this episode is your reminder that your role extends beyond the chair and also beyond the lesson plan.
Mhm.
Understanding how your school operates, how accreditation works, and how compliance protects students will actually make you stronger and a more valuable educator. It is my hope that this conversation has expanded your perspective. And just be sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you have not done so already. Share the episode with your team. Be sure to follow Miss Jane in her work. She is going to also provide you guys with more information again as to who she is, what she does, and how you can find her beyond today's episode. And then also continue raising the standard inside of your classrooms, because without you, there is no future to our industry. So, Miss Jane, again, thank you. I want you to, again, tell the people who you are, what you do, and then where they can find you beyond today's episode.
Once more, my name is Jane Archie, and I own a company called JSpeak Solutions. You can find me on web, www.jspeaksolutions. My email and my phone are there because I do like text, and what I do is try to help this industry be better. So I work with school owners, I work with educators. As a mentor, I make sure that a school understands what my position is, what my role is. They're not paying me to do something that's outside and then just give it to them. As a mentor, that means it's a guidance. That means it's a coach. And that's what I enjoy doing. But I also have right now, currently, we have some continuing education. We have a continuing education for teachers approved by Nevada. There's a 6-hour course on just the idea of teaching and how to be ready for people in Texas, for people who are here that are jumping in and have not been educators before. We found that they needed some guidance to begin how to work that classroom. So we have that course out there, and we have continuing education on how to open a school, and also for Texas renewal for continuing education for barbers and for everybody else in the profession. I want to thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed talking to you and listening to you. You're a wonderful speaker, and I really enjoy being here.
Thank you. Likewise. And I totally appreciate you for accepting the invitation to have your seat on the Beauty Educators Chair. So, guys, as we close out today's session, we want to thank you for tuning in to the Beauty Educators Chair. Again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, teach with excellence, lead with intention, and elevate your industry from the inside out. See you guys soon.